Good morning. Welcome to this episode of Letting Jesus In with Andrea. I am still up having my morning coffee, as you can see. So cheers to that. Happy Thursday. We are continuing with my sermon series on healing. And this morning, the Lord brought me to 2 Kings chapter 5, where it talks about Naaman being healed of leprosy. And so Naaman was a leader in the army of Aram, and he had leprosy. And so in Israel, if you had leprosy, you were considered unclean, and you weren't supposed to even be near anybody. Like, you were supposed to be like an outcast, separated away from all the people. So people who had leprosy were recluse. But in this case, in Aram, Naaman was the general of the army. And only answered to the king of Aram. So anyway, a servant in the house of Naaman was from Israel, and she told Naaman's wife that if he would go to the prophet in Israel, that he would be healed, that the Lord would heal him if he went to the prophet. So Naaman went to the king of Aram and explained what the servant had said. And so the king of Aram sent a letter to the king of Israel. And the king of Israel tore his robes, got all upset. Does this man think that I'm God? That I can heal, or that I can, destroy and then lift up again? And the prophet, who didn't even have to be present with the king to know what was going on, because the Lord gave him prophetic insight to where he knew exactly what was happening with the king, or with Israel, or with the enemies of Israel even. At any time, the Lord had given him such an incredible anointing to be able to see and hear in the spirit to protect the land of Israel. So Elisha knew exactly what was going on, and sent a letter to the king and was like, "Why have you torn your robes? Send the man to me. Send the man to me, and then he will know that there is not only a prophet in Israel, but he will know that there is no other God but the God of Israel." So Naaman and his soldiers go to the house of Elijah. And guess what happens? Elijah doesn't go outside to meet him. He sends his servant out, and the servant gives Naaman this instruction that Elijah says to go dip himself in the Jordan River 7 times, and he'll be healed. He'll be cleansed from his leprosy. And Naaman gets mad. Naaman lets his ego and his pride and his fame get the best of him. And he rebukes the servant, and he rebukes the prophet, and he storms away angry because he's expecting some big show. He's expecting the prophet to come out and to call on the Lord and make some big performance. Well, why would he think that? Because he came from Aram, where they served false idols, where they didn't know the real Lord. They didn't know the real God. They served false gods. And everything was about performance, not actual worship. Because you don't really worship an idol. Okay? You don't. Somewhere in your spirit, you'll know that it's false. So he's expecting some big performance. He's expecting all this, pomp and circumstance for who he is, and he didn't get that. He got truth, and he didn't want to hear the truth. He wasn't ready for truth. I'm speaking to somebody today. So what happens? He goes storming off, and his servants and his soldiers come after him and say, if the prophet had asked you to do some, big, meticulous thing, wouldn't you have done it? If he had made some big, performance, you would have listened to him then. So then how much more then should you listen if it's really as simple as dipping yourself in the Jordan River 7 times? And they had to urge him to please listen to the prophet and go. His soldiers, his servants. See, they got it. They got it. They got the message that, whoa, this isn't a God of performance. This is a God of obedience. This isn't a God of performance. This is a God of obedience. This is the God, the true God, who doesn't want performance. He sees the heart. He wants obedience. He wants you to serve him. He wants you to follow his instructions. He doesn't want performance. Anybody can perform. Anybody can be a fake. He wants your obedience. So Naaman finally goes to the Jordan, dips himself in the Jordan River 7 times, and his skin is completely, 100%, absolutely, totally healed. So now he's humbled, and he comes back. He comes back clean and humble. And now the prophet comes out to see him. And he declares that there is no other God other than the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's the God of Israel, Yahweh. There is no other God but Yahweh. And so then he asks for forgiveness, and in humbleness and in humility, he asks that the Lord would not punish him, because he has to be there when the king goes in and bows at the false gods, and he has to be there so the king can lean on him, and he has to bow. When the king bows, he has to bow his head. And so he asks for forgiveness, but makes it clear that he recognizes that the only God, the true God, is the God of Israel, and that's who he will serve from that day forward. So with the Lord giving me that this morning, he also took me to Proverbs to reinforce this. And in Proverbs, it says, bear with me here. Let me put my glasses on. I want to make sure I have this. I don't want to misspeak. My son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart, for they will. This is Proverbs 3, the beginning of chapter 3 in Proverbs. My son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart. For they will prolong your life many years and bring you peace and prosperity. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. That's exactly what happened to Naaman, that once he humbled himself and stopped being wise in his own eyes, but was obedient to the Lord brought health to his body and strength to his bones. Because there was no cure for leprosy. Leprosy would have killed him. It would have completely eaten his flesh away. His flesh would have been falling off of his bones, and he would eventually died from leprosy. And it was highly contagious. So anybody who was even near him was at risk of catching it, right? That's why in Israel, they considered them to be unclean, and they were supposed to live as a recluse on their own, because separated from their families and from the village, because there was no cure for it. So what the Lord did for Naaman here was a miracle, and the Lord gave him this healing and this miracle to show him that he is the only true God. And then that way, Naaman's house would serve the Lord, and his soldiers would serve the Lord, and they would stop serving false gods in Aram. Okay, so the truth not only set him free, but it would set a whole people group free. Okay, now remember, these are the same people that had the Aram are the same people that had raided Israel, and Elijah prayed to the Lord and had the army blinded, and then he led them, I believe, right into Samaria, if I'm not mistaken. And they could have killed the entire army, but they didn't. They set food and water in front of them. They fed them. When the Lord opened their blinded eyes and they realized what had just happened to them, they knew they had all just witnessed a miracle. They stopped raiding Israel from that day forward, because they knew that God was with Israel, and that he was powerful and he was mighty. And they were all humbled, including their king. So the Lord is saying he wants to heal somebody. He wants to heal you, whoever you are that's watching this, or if you